Hello, Meg Miller, an Adult Services Librarian here at Pflugerville Public Library, bringing you another Crafty at Home Cafe. For this craft tutorial, we are going to make a very fun little spring terrarium. It is in an ornament, so you'll be able to hang it somewhere or put it on a shelf. This will be our last Crafty at Home Cafe before we take a little break in preparation for our summer reading programs. If you haven't checked out what we've got to offer this summer, take a look over at library.pflugervilletx.gov and see all of the fun things for all ages that we'll be doing. For this craft though, for those first 40 folks who were able to sign up to pick up a material supply kit, what you're going to get is in our little white paper bag here, and it's going to be some fun stuff. So of course we've got the base, we've got the terrarium ornament plastic there. You are also going to get a little baggie of miniatures to put in there. We have a tiny tree stump that we 3D printed here at the library. We've got a little bird, a little bunny, a little bee, and a little ladybug, as well as a mushroom. And then also in this bag, you'll find the foam adhesive squares that we'll use to put it together. For the grass, we're using reindeer moss, and I've kind of folded it up in some paper here and taped it together, so that's your reindeer moss. And then for the outside, I have two options for everyone. So you're gonna get the napkin that we used in our example, and it's got lovely little flowers and trees and vines on it. And then we also have provided some tissue paper that's kind of a more fun, marbled with a bit of gold accent if you want that shiny stuff. And in order to put that on, we're going to need a little bit of Mod Podge. So the last thing in the kits are some Podge and a foam brush. So those are all the things you need. If you get everything together, we'll get started crafting. Great, so we've got all of our supplies for our spring terrarium here. The first piece that we'll do, since it'll need a little bit of time to dry, will be to podge on the outside either the napkin, if you're looking for something a little bit more springy that has flowers and leaves and whatnot on it, like we did for our example here. You just be able to kind of pick where you want that pattern to go. Or if you'd like, and for this tutorial video, I'm going to go ahead and use the tissue paper because it's got a little bit of gold to it. And I like the shiny, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. We'll see how that does. So I'm going to put that face down. I'm going to move out my miniatures and my reindeer moss because I won't need that right now. You'll also want to go ahead and take the lid or the top off of your terrarium here. We won't need that for right now. So this should be more than enough to cover either the napkin or the tissue paper, whatever you decide. So you'll really be able to kind of fit it right around there. It should have more than enough to do. So I'm just gonna open my Mod Podge there, get my foam brush. As you can see, I've protected the table so that I don't get any of the podge on the table itself or mess up my work area. You might want to do that. Something a little bit more plastic, maybe an old trash bag or an old HEB bag that you set down. If you use paper, when the podge is wet, it may stick to your terrarium, and then you'll have whatever that paper was also on your craft. So you'll have to watch out for that. So just grabbing a bunch here and putting a layer on the terrarium. And I'm going all the way around. If you've got scissors and you'd like, something you could do would be to cut strips or cut exact designs out of the napkin or tissue paper that you want exactly where you want it. So I'm just going to kind of go for it like I did with my original one. If you've watched any of my craft tutorials, you know that's kind of my go-to, is just go for it and see how it works. It's the great thing with crafting, you can kind of try all these different techniques, and sometimes they don't work, and that's all right. So I'm just going all the way around, this thing being an ornament and having that handy hole in the top, it makes it a whole lot easier to not get podge all over my own fingers. All right, coming around to the front here, just making sure I get at least a good layer all the way around on the ornament. There we go. All right, set that aside for now. And I think I am going to do this right here. Because it has a little bit of a divot, I'm starting at the bottom, just making sure that all fits right in there. I'm going to come up around the edge, and at a certain point I will have to fold. Both the napkin and the tissue paper will be thin enough that you should be able to tear it to make it to take off pieces if you'd like. Or as you can see I'm doing here, I'm just kind of folding over the edge into the inside. You'd be able to do that as well. All right, let's switch to the other side here. This I'm gonna need to make a fold so that I make sure my tissue paper gets all the way up to the top. There we go. All right, and again, as I said, if you've got scissors, you can use those. Tissue paper is also very thin, so we can just kind of tear that off. But that might be a little bit more difficult if you tear a little too far. Just gonna tear that off there, make a fold. You're not gonna get, unless you're really using strips and really going for it, you're not gonna get a completely smooth layering, but that's all right. The folding adds to, well, for this tissue paper, it really adds to the marbling, and then you can kind of get the gold if that's what you're looking for. I'm definitely also gonna have to tear here. I think I wanna try and keep this little vein of gold right across the top, so I'm gonna tear around it. There we are. Just kind of tearing away the excess that I'm not gonna need. Definitely not gonna need all of this back here. Let's go this way. Tearing up, but making sure I'm leaving enough so that it covers and I don't end up with a piece of the ornament showing through. There we go. All right, you can see I've got kind of random bits and pieces sticking up. I'm just gonna go ahead and lay those down. Actually, I don't think I need all of this right here. Tear off a little more of that. The pod should soak through enough that you can get this layered down pretty straightforward. And then you'll see we're gonna add an extra layer on top to really seal everything down. So make sure I don't have any excess anywhere I don't want it. I like that little marbling right there. All right, let's just tear this off. There we go. Right, and that'll be the back anyway, so the kind of weirdness of the gold and the marbling won't be too easy to see. Just making sure I've got all of my places covered. Now I'm going to go ahead for the next layer. Because the tissue paper is fairly thin, I'm not going to pull too hard with my foam brush. I want to make sure that I don't rip the tissue paper at all, or very much. And I'm just gonna start from the top. And where I've got these folded areas, just kind of making sure that I get enough podge underneath before smoothing them down. It'll help everything stay together. This is the satin finish Mod Podge, so it should have a little bit of a shine to it and not really be that matted when it dries. I'm just gonna go ahead and give a little around the inside, so as I smooth these pieces down in here, it won't come back up as I'm putting my miniatures on the inside. And just more polish. A nice layer around, smoothing out the areas where I've folded over. Again, not too hard so I don't rip my tissue paper. And a fairly thin layer. I mean, it will dry clear, but the more you put on, the longer it will take to dry. So because I want to make sure I've got coverage, but not too much. Get everything on there, and then I'm going to go back through with my foam brush, just kind of get any excess off of it right there, and then kind of come back through, wipe across, lay down any little areas that are still sticking up. You know. All right, looks good. Looks like I've got all of it. Got a little bit around the top, but that's not too bad. And it looks like all of my inside pieces are basically laid down. And if that one wants to come up, I'm going to go ahead and use my finger to press it all down. And if it still doesn't want to stay, you can always pull it off. So we've got the terrarium outside piece ready. And so now we're going to have to take a little crafting break. Because this is Crafty at Home Cafe, maybe grab yourself a drink, give it a little while to dry. Again, don't leave it on a paper surface or something that will adhere. You can also, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to set him on the lid side. I'll set him down right like that to dry. If I've got a time constraint, I might use a little bit of a hair dryer, but since I really don't, I'm going to go ahead and let this dry. Putting the lid back on the rest of the Mod Podge. Now you have a little bit of Podge extra. I'm definitely going to go ahead and wash out the foam brush with a little bit of just a drop of dish soap and water to get that glue out of there. Then I can be able to use the foam brush again. All right, so we'll be back after this is dry, and we'll get our terrarium put together. Great, so I've given it maybe about an hour. It's pretty close to dry. There's some spots where they were a little heavier on the podge that haven't quite dried yet, but I think I'm good enough to go ahead and at least show this part of the tutorial. So now I'm ready for the fun stuff. As I mentioned in the intro, your little paper packet here is going to have the reindeer moss. And the rest of the stuff in the bag is our little decorations. So we have the cutest tiny bunny. We have these delicate little birds, kind of foamy. Little mushroom that has a wire attached to the bottom so you can kind of manipulate that to put it where you'd like. Tiny tree stumps, 3D printed right here at the library. And then these fun little things. So I got bees and ladybugs, and they do actually have foam, adhesive foam circles on the bottom, so we'll be able to attach them. Additionally, there's one larger foam square and 3 smaller ones. So those will work for our bunny, our bird, and our little tree stump. So I like the little foam bird on the tree stump. So I'm just gonna put my first foam square on the bottom, remove the adhesive covering, and let's just get him put right there on the tree stump. There he is, perched perfectly. Okay. And for the tree stump, I'll use the bigger square of adhesive foam. Pull one backing off, position and push down. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull the other backing off and place him right inside. I'm going to go not quite dead center, a little bit back, pushing down to make sure that foam adheres. Same for my little bird guy. There we go. So first piece in there, our little bird. For the mushroom, because I've got the wire, I'm gonna slide him along, and actually let me pop this back out for a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and use the adhesive on here to put my little mushroom guy on. There we go. So I will be able to kind of position that to the side, and then I can come back in here and put my little guy in there again. Put down my adhesive, and then that wire will allow me to reposition the mushroom if I'd like. Our little bunny guy is probably going to need a little bit more adhesive, so I'm going to give him both of these smaller squares. And actually I want him to be a little bit taller, so I'm going to stack them on top of each other. So I put the first one down, and then I'm going to put the second one right on top of it. Remove that little bit of backing and get my bunny placed in there. I think I want my bunny to kind of be in the front, so he's looking right out. So I got all my little guys right there. Now I've got the reindeer moss. I'm just going to kind of pull it apart some. And let's toss a little in the top. Oh, I got on my bird. Alright, so I'm just going to slide the reindeer moss in there. Give it kind of a cool underlay background. You can use some right here in front of the bunny so you don't really see that adhesive foam underneath. It just looks like the bunny's there. Same for right around my mushroom. The more of this I kind of pack in there, the less of that wire that you'll see. And I've really got enough that I can kind of go in there, make sure all my little guys are visible. Yeah, a little bit more here on the side. If I get it going up the back a little bit, it almost gives like that it's in a forest kind of look. And so for my little bugs, I could put them on the inside if I wanted. Maybe one of the little bugs landing on the mushroom or on something like that. But I really liked what I did on my example. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Just going to take the backing off of my little bee first. There he is. And I'm going to put him on the outside. Here's my little bee. Oop. There he is. So, little bee there. And I think my ladybug, will run away under the table, so we'll leave him there. But I probably would have just kind of put him, we'll steal the one for my example. Give a little ladybug on that side. Now the last piece to do will just be to put the top of my terrarium ornament back on. So I'm just going to squeeze together these two interior pieces so that it gets right on there, then slide that top on. And there we have our spring terrarium. Hope you enjoyed making this craft and it finds a great little home somewhere for you, and we'd love to see pictures of your completed projects.